You're listening to The Watchers, the show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey watch TV about New Jersey. We're watching Yellowjackets.
We are. Season 1.
That's right. Episode 4 today, Bear Down.
Bear Down.
Whole time I was watching this.
Yeah.
I was waiting for a bear.
You forgot about the part where he's trying to shit?
Well, I forgot
The first scene.
that, I think I thought there were two things, that it was a double.
Well,
was
it could be more than that. I mean, so anyway, I'm Jody.
I'm Andrea. The show is often so literal with titles like Friends, Romans, Countrymen, Lend Me Your Ears.
Yes.
And then they eat an ear.
Right.
So I thought it was like a double thing, that like bear down and then they were going to hunt a bear and the bear would go down.
So I thought about this. And so we have the obvious, which is him trying to take a shit in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But then it also could be foreshadowing, because you think about the fact that later in the season, a bear literally kneels down in front of Lottie.
Right, totally.
And
I think that's what I was conflating,
Right.
the deer being killed and the bear that...
Mm-hmm. And Shauna has to give birth later, which is also when you hear the phrase bear down.
Bear down.
It literally is like three things at once. But in this episode, it's Coach Ben trying to poop.
That scene is so upsetting.
I know.
You've been waiting.
Yeah, we finally got my my favorite needle drop, I think, of this first season, when Jane's Addiction's Mountain Song plays as they're crashing. It's just so perfect.
It's so perfect.
To the point where I keep thinking it had happened previously.
Right, yeah. I don't know that I can commit to a favorite needle drop, but...
Yeah, that's why I hesitated. I don't think there is a favorite, but this is like top tier. Top tier needle drop.
It's very good.
Yeah, it's great. So I think that we decided for this episode we're gonna we've been going back and forth between do we do timelines 96 and 2021, or do we integrate it the way the show has? And this one, it's so intertwined, especially with the Nat stuff, that I think we have to just go in the order the episode went.
That feels right to me.
Yeah, because Nat's literally in two timelines at once at one point. Like she's watching herself. So yeah.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of past coming up in the present stuff in this episode.
Yeah, we start off real strong with that rehash of the moment of the crash from Nat's perspective, where she sees her dad with half a face sitting next to her.
So gross.
So horror movie. He says, "We're almost there. It's been waiting for us."
We're really starting to set the question of how much agency does the wilderness have?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I think this is one of those things people grabbed onto also later in this episode with the plane, when Lottie says it didn't want him to leave.
Exactly.
The little plane. We're starting to give, quote unquote, the wilderness more power as we go through as we go through the season 1 episodes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Her dad says she already has blood on her hands, and I think that at the beginning we're meant to think that she killed her dad. But then she wakes up and it was a dream, and
Lottie is already awake. It is so frightening to see somebody just sitting up like that.
Well, I also noticed this time it's kind of reminiscent of, I think when we first see Lottie in season 2, she's standing with her back to her followers, looking out at the mountains, and she's very still in that same way.
Totally.
Just sort of focused on the distance. Yeah.
She says, "I think bad things happened here."
Which hopefully we'll fucking find out. Where's the cabin episode? Give us we need a little something.
I know.
2025 is really far away. Can we please have our cabin episode?
Sadly, my guess is that it probably, because this gap is going to be so long, my bet or guess is that it will actually be a lot closer to season 2.
I think so too.
Because they don't want us to people are going to forget about it, except for us, because we're obsessed.
Yeah.
But then it'll be a way to drum stuff back up.
Exactly. Yeah. They'll use it to drum up excitement for season 3.
But I do need it.
I want to know what happened. What bad things, Lottie? Tell us. Yeah. And I think Lottie is obviously imagining the skeleton that was up in the attic that they've since buried, and Nat says, "It's okay, they buried him." But
he seems that skeleton seemed to have died pretty peacefully.
He had his mouth open like he was screaming, though.
Oh, I just assume that's what happens when you die.
It probably does. I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, I think it's the opposite.
Oh.
Right. Doesn't your stuff get tighter?
Oh, I don't want to find out. Like, I don't want to know. I'm not looking it up. But yeah, he had his mouth open like he was screaming, and whether that's like for effect or if we're supposed to think something horrible happened. Yeah, it does not.
I guess that does peacefully. Kind of parallel, or maybe not parallel, but similar to when we see Laura Lee at Travis's death later, and her face gets all gray and stony.
Yeah, and her mouth is open, and gross.
Very, very scary.
That was one of my least favorite scenes.
Yeah, not great.
The next thing we see is adult Nat driving her car and talking to Misty, but she's also listening to Mountain Song, which is a nice little jump back and forth with the music. But this is one of our like comedic breaks where Misty is like looking at a website called What to and Not to Say to Someone Grieving a Suicide.
You know what? At least she knows to seek outside assistance for something she's not actually qualified to handle.
Someone tell me what empathy sounds like.
Exactly.
Yes. How would a human respond? Yeah. She's also, I'm looking back at my notes from when I first rewatched season 1 as we do this, and the things I thought were super important are interesting to me now. So she's wearing, her scrubs have owls on them, which I was like, what does that mean?
This is so lost. This is such a Lost watcher looking for symbols.
I know, but
they really set us up for that.
I know, but before we started today, we were talking about Javi's drawings. It's not an owl; it's a bird. But like, you know,
it's a fat little starling in a dunce cap.
It's not wearing a hat. They are asking us to do this, though. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah, she also has a little postcard for the dupe of My Favorite Murder. The Monday Morning Murder Show.
Funny.
Her favorite podcast.
I'm obsessed with Citizen Detective True Crime Obsessed, Misty. It's so funny.
It's great. This is where she says they should get together and throw a few pins on the old corkboard.
I have one.
Oh, God. Yeah, we can use yours if you want to.
It's just the assumption that everybody has a corkboard.
Yeah.
Nat is so stubbornly refusing to entertain. It really is sad. Like, because Misty says it wasn't your fault. And that's like, why the fuck would Travis's murder be my fault?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I know. Watching this episode that was so heavily focused on Nat, I feel like adult Nat, I kind of get why there's all this stuff in the press about how Juliette Lewis was like not thrilled with the direction her character took in season 1. And we've kind of talked about that in the past. But this episode in particular, I just felt like she was so... fully traumatized, like not her whole personality in this episode to me feels like trauma. Like,
yeah, the way she treats Kevin a little later is upsetting.
Yeah.
Like, she's tough to watch in this episode.
Yeah, it really, like, there's not a lot of sort of redeeming like life left in her. It comes, we get more of it later, thankfully. Like, she does have some other moments where she's has a bit more to her than just like being a destroyed person.
Right.
But I do think I can see rewatching this why Juliette Lewis was like, is there more to her than this? Because God.
It's really interesting to see how, because they all went through the same similar stuff out there together. And obviously it was worse for some people than others. But for example, Shauna's best friend, who she's arguably in love with, died, and then she spent 2 months chatting with her, and then they ate her.
Yeah.
And then she had a baby that she didn't think died, that she thought her friends ate, and then it turned out the baby really did die, and then she came home. And now in the same episode where Nat is so haunted and just so deep in her trauma, Shauna is playing mini golf and like free diving with a hot stranger. And I know that's like they're both processing and dealing with and handling their trauma in different ways. But it's so just to see that stuff kind of held up next to each other is really interesting.
Well, and I can also see
I know I'm jumping ahead there.
No, but I think it's important because when we're talking about Juliette Lewis and her character being just like a, you know, kind of trauma porn situation. Like,
yeah.
if you compare it to the way the other people are dealing with it, like they are also processing it badly, but they have a bit more agency. Like Nat feels like she's fully at the mercy of her trauma, while the others are like, even if they actually are fully at the mercy of their trauma, they have sort of more agency in their daily lives, you know? So, and I also think we see this, we're not there yet, but when we get to Nat going home to see her mom, I had thoughts about the home situation this time that didn't really occur to me last time. But let's go to your favorite awkward scene.
Least favorite.
Yeah. Ben can't poop. I mean, they've barely eaten. So
Misty will not shut up.
Nope.
So that's probably part of it.
Why is she even there?
That's what I was thinking. He's getting around.
He can hobble. Like you don't need help necessarily. Like he could hold onto the tree just as much as he's holding onto her.
Yeah, it is.
That tells me that she was like, no, I'm coming with you to help you because you need help. I'm your helper. I'm going to help you do this. Like, I'm going to help you do everything because this is misery and I am Kathy Bates. And
it's so accurate.
Yeah.
And one of her forms of torture is singing. They had to have, in the writer's room, tried out a few different songs.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about like, so Breakfast at Tiffany's is such a specific moment in like radio pop alternative rock, I guess. Like it's so specific to that time period. Because like 1995, 96 is when that came out. And this is obviously 96. I think it came out in 95. But I remember the stronghold this type of music had on the radio. And like, it was the lowest common denominator for radio music at the time. Like it was on every station. Because this was when I was going to college in Jersey and commuting to Montclair. And like, yeah, this shit was on the radio constantly.
Yeah, it's a song that,
I mean, no shade to Hootie and the Blowfish, but this could have been Hootie and the Blowfish.
Interesting. I would say it's no shade to either Deep Blue Something or Hootie and the Blowfish.
Sure. What about Roll to Me?
You going to talk about Delamitri? You going to talk Delamitri to me?
Yeah.
Also, Sister Hazel, All For You. There's so many that it could have been.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about, is that specific genre. Oh, Boys to Men. Oh, imagine her singing I'll Make Love to You. Sorry.
That's what I mean. Like, they really had to decide how on the nose to get and which particular nose to get on. Right. And they went kind of subtle. Like Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah. Okay, wait. I'm looking at the Hot 100 Billboard charts from 1995.
Oh, my God.
This is like I think this is January 95.
I was 9.
Shut up. I'm the Only One. Melissa Etheridge.
Oh, man.
That would have been intense. Yeah, Hootie and the Blowfish, Hold My Hand. Oh, that would have been really on the nose.
See, that's what I mean. Like, they tried it out in the room.
Yeah, but that specific genre of 90s music, I can see, like Nat's very associated with bands like Jane's Addiction, Dinosaur Jr., Nirvana. The music that they've sort of attached to these characters is really pretty dead on.
It does sort of make sense for Misty that the music she would be listening to is what she thinks is the most popular. Like,
absolutely,
this is what people like.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, she's constantly trying to figure out what people like and what people do. So, okay, little music detour. So Ben's trying to poop. She's singing Breakfast at Tiffany's. And then we get the next scene with Travis playing with the gun. Which I thought this was interesting because watching it this time around, it felt like really obvious that this was Ben's kind of last grasp at authority when he was like, we are going to treat this like a serious thing and blah, blah, blah. And like was kind of taking charge, and people were still listening to him at this point.
It is, his arc is really something to to watch.
I really hope he's still alive in 2021 somewhere, and we get like a reveal.
Well, we see him in that cult scene. He's sitting down. He's the guy with the big beard.
You
can't
that
see.
like it's fact, and it's not fact.
Mari looks kind of excited here.
Yeah.
She's just always looking for a shakeup, I think.
I think that what I'm realizing is that I think it's, what's her name, Alexis Barajas, something like that. I should know this. The actress that plays Mari, I think we didn't notice her a lot in season 1, but she's actually doing some really like good and interesting background acting.
Yeah,
that is laying a lot of groundwork.
There's more Akila and Mari than I remembered in hindsight when we were watching season 2. Like, I think when we were watching season 2, we were like, oh, they brought these 2 red shirts, who we thought were going to be red shirts from season 1, out to do more in season 2, but they were always kind of around.
And Mari was like the actress that plays Mari, she probably didn't know that she was going to get a bigger role in season 2, but she was making sure that if she did, her choices in season 1 made sense later on. Like, she really was paying attention to what she needed to be, her expressions, all of that, like, have purpose in the scenes where she's barely, like, acknowledged.
It makes me think maybe they did have a little more in mind for them. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think, in our early speculation, when everybody was like, who's Pit Girl? Who's Pit Girl? This is the most important question. Who's Pit Girl? Like, she has dark hair. She could be Mari. Like, and people still think she could be Mari, and there's been nothing to tell us that she isn't. And so maybe if we're following your logic of like, maybe she knew that she was going to be around for a while, that could be why.
Yeah. And my only reasoning for thinking Mari is still alive in the present is metatextual. There's that, we talked about it back in our coverage of season 2 toward the end, I think. There's not article, but there's like there was a piece in some magazine that was like Yellowjackets superlatives, like voted most likely.
Yes.
And it was between season 1 and season 2 that it was published, but everything was a hint for season 2 that was really on the nose.
Yes.
And the one from Mari was like most likely to contact you on Facebook for you know, whatever, which implies that she's still around. And I know that it doesn't mean that necessarily, but the rest of them were so specific and have come true.
Yeah, no, I forgot about that, but that's true. And we have heard nothing of Mari in the present.
It's also possible they've had all this time now between seasons 2 and 3. Like, even if that had been the plan between season 1 and 2,
it could have changed.
Yeah. So we really can't count on anything at this point.
Well, and it's like there's certain people. There's a little handful of people that were important in 1996 that we don't know what happened to them yet. Most people we know, they're either alive, they're dead, they just died. Like, but
We've got
Mari, Akila. Those are the big 3 that come to my mind. We don't know what happened to them yet, and if they're still around. I think we're kind of a little bit meant to assume that if we haven't seen them yet, they're dead, but we know that doesn't mean that at all.
Right.
The epic end of season 1, who the fuck is Lottie Matthews moment. Like,
so
that could
good.
happen with any of the others too.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I can't wait for the show to be over.
Yeah.
I just want to know.
I know. So yeah. Anyway, Travis is being a stupid teenage boy with a gun, being really irresponsible, and Ben says it's a dangerous weapon, but they need to hunt and someone has to learn to use it, and the camera pans right to Nat.
Right.
And that's our jump to sort of the multiple timelines in one scene.
Man, it bums me out.
Yeah.
Nat and her mom. You said you noticed some things or had some thoughts about this scene.
So I think that, and I'm not going to say that this is like all from my brain, but of course I did go back to the well that is Reddit for some takes because I wasn't sure how I felt about this whole section. And I think someone had mentioned how it felt a little easy or a little pat. That, like, of course, Nat has abusive father, alcoholic mother, lives in a trailer, completely bleak existence. Like, she's finding happiness within that with her friends and where she can. But, like, it does feel like a trope a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that we're kind of slotting these girls into different tropes in the beginning, especially like, you
Right.
know, Jackie's the like spoiled rich kid who's really popular. Sean is her best
Mm-hmm.
friend who's like, you know, a little less well off clearly by her car. And like Misty's
And, like,
probably
quietly smart and overshadowed by her more vibrant, more beautiful friend. Blah, blah,
exactly. And Misty's like the, you know, probably child of rich parents with an in-ground pool, but like we don't see them at all.
Right.
And so the economic stuff is like interesting to me. I think it's, and I think one of the things we mentioned early on about Jersey is that it is true that like wildly disparate economic conditions are within 5 minutes of each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just the economic conditions of Nat plus the abusive dad plus the drunk mom, like all of that together. It's the thing we were just saying about how Nat's story is kind of one note and all about trauma.
Yeah.
And it's like, why does it have to be that she lives in a trailer and has abusive parents and this and this and this? Like, why couldn't it be either she lives in a trailer and has at least one good parent,
right.
you know, or she doesn't live in a trailer and has abusive parents, or like, it just feels like.
Yeah, you know what it reminds me of now that you say that is when we watched
I know where you're going. I think.
The Legend of Billie Jean.
I was right. Yep.
And we get that scene where Billie Jean goes to that neighborhood and the kid who's getting beat is of course being abused by the like drunk poor dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also what you said before about the like Misty probably being in a mansion home alone reminded me first what put me in the mind of the movie of the friend that they make.
Yes.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
And that's maybe why Misty has the freedom to be such a weirdo.
Right.
Because she probably is unsupervised and has like she reminds me too. I don't know what made me think of this, but like if this were a cartoon, she would be the like Dexter, like Dexter's lab, like she'd have her own weird little science lab in the house that nobody knows about.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. And like I just for some reason in my head I just turned her into Hard Harry. I like this has just been because in the basement doing secret things.
Yes.
But it's a little bit like all poor parents that live in trailer homes are abusive. And obviously that's not the case. And I don't think that's what they're trying to say here, but I do think it's a little bit easy that the economic and the sort of like poor parenting are lumped together in this way.
And I think like you said, and we've done over and over again, they do all sort of slot into these different tropes, but hers just feels so like you said, kind of one note and on the nose. And especially now knowing where she ends up, there's nothing for Nat this whole time. It's so upsetting.
I know. And like it made me think about, so Van also has a drunk mom, right? And has to like hit her to wake her up. And it doesn't look like she lives anywhere super nice either.
I was just going to say, yeah.
But we don't feel that way about Nat's character because there's more of a sense of strength, or like Van doesn't seem totally beaten down all the time in the way she's written, in the way that Nat does.
Right. And Van gets to joke around and be a little silly. And she has, you know, even like Nat and Travis and Van and Ty both have sort of like secret-ish, everybody knows, but they're not like very like out in the open relationships.
Yeah.
But even that, like Van and Ty's gets to be a little more light. Like it just.
And sweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Travis from the beginning is a misogynistic dick. Like we feel softer to him as the show goes on. But in the beginning, rewatching this, I'm reminded how much he sucks. And for her to fall in love with a shitty dude who literally points a gun at her in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. It is really like, I don't know. I just have a bad taste in my mouth about Nat's whole story arc.
And I think when we first watched this and when I watched it without the knowledge of what was to come for Nat, it felt heavy and it felt a little like, almost a little too much trauma-wise for her, but I kept thinking, well, you know, maybe there's a better end for Nat.
Right,
Like maybe
exactly.
we're seeing this as an origin story for her to become some sort of hero. And now that we know how that ends, it just feels like a slog of like trauma in her life. I said trauma like 20 times in the last 10 minutes. Well,
because
yeah,
that's
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so adult Nat watches teen Nat and Kevin come in. They have their little moment where they're listening to Dinosaur Jr., which we've talked about. I know. They have their I liked Nirvana before they were cool moment.
Ever since they left Sub Pop.
Yep. It's such a classic 90s like music nerd statement.
Totally.
She's painting his nails. Her dad comes home. She tries to send him out the window to avoid it. And we have that horrible scene with her dad like calling her a slut and grabbing her, and it's just awful.
Yeah.
And we also see then adult Nat looking for a mixtape from Kevin. And it's so looking at this now, I feel like I don't think that Nat felt great about it, but she was super manipulative with Kevin later on.
Yes.
And I think that this was the beginning of that thought process where she was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to really like play with Kevin's emotions to get him to look into what happened to Travis. But the whole mixtape thing is very sweet. Like, of course he would have made her mixtapes.
With a little bit of like line work. You know what I mean? He's like dressed them up a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, and he's definitely put them in a specific order. He's chosen ones that have lyrics that are like kind of in there hidden that are about how he feels about her.
He can pretend like he just picks some songs he likes, but there are messages in there. Yeah, totally.
It's all about like, you know, how great he thinks she is. And yeah.
God.
It's all in there.
Poor Kevin Tan.
If I had time for side projects right now, I think I would have a side project of like, what was on Kevin Tan's mixtape for that?
I know.
Let's make the playlist.
Totally.
Somebody should do that. I don't have time right now, but somebody should do that. Make Kevin Tan's mixtape.
I think that's a great idea. If you do, let us know.
Yeah, please. We get adult Ty and Simone getting ready for this political fundraiser. Sammy hiding like a creep in the closet,
unblinking,
wearing a Positive Vibes shirt. Hilarious.
Just fully unblinking.
Fucking hilarious.
It's so funny what they've done to this poor child. What a little demon they've turned him into.
It's so funny to me. And then I think this is one of the things I didn't notice the first couple of times, but it flips immediately to Ty holding the rifle for Pierre. So it's like it's not just Nat in this episode. We're playing with everyone's
something
past
you
and present.
Just skipped that is unforgivable is they're getting ready for the fundraiser. Simone is quizzing her, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and then Simone says, "And if all else fails, pull out the Tina Turner and Hooch bit."
Oh yes,
what is that bit?
I know we need that bit.
What could the bit be, Jody? I have to. I
don't know
because I'm screaming. Tina Turner adopts Hooch instead of Tom Hanks. Is that the bit?
I don't know.
Is there
you should have someone. We know a lot of comedians. Have someone write the bit.
What would it be?
I'm not a comedian, as everyone can tell.
So funny.
I could not do it.
Neither is Ty.
I know. No, not at all. Can you imagine? I do want to know what that bit is.
Turner and Hooch bit.
It's really, I forgot about that bit.
It kills. That bit kills, apparently. It's a good bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So someone needs to make the mixtape and someone needs to write the Turner and Hooch bit. Yes.
Have you ever seen Turner and Hooch?
I don't know.
Oh
I don't like slobber, and I know what that movie is like.
So much like he swallowed a pair of tennis shoes.
It's like a mouth sounds nightmare. Movie. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Do you want a margarita? I'll make you a margarita.
I feel like it's worse with people than with dogs, that mouth sounds thing, but
Hooch is so slobbery.
Yeah, I can't.
And also that movie makes me weep.
That's not a statement that means anything.
That could be about truly any movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway. Tina Turner and Hooch, I can't get over it.
So we go back to the woods where they're all testing how steady their hands are with the rifle. I would not be very steady.
No.
The only people that succeed are Travis and Nat. And Nat doesn't at first because she sees her
gets
dad
the
again.
yips.
Yeah, she gets the yips. And again, Travis is being a full-on dick here. He's like taunting her.
It's so unnecessary.
Yeah.
I really love when Javi is mean to him because he deserves it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's trying to reach out to Javi. He just says, fuck you, and storms away. I'm like, good for you, man. Your brother sucks. Sorry, Travis.
I feel like low-key, Javi is one of the better characters in this TV show, in that, like, he's like a victim in all of this. He's like, he's the youngest. He wasn't supposed to be there to that day. Like, he's just sort of, he had to run away and hide somewhere from the psycho cannibalist cult that's been created. So Javi runs off, and this is another Shauna and Javi bonding moment.
Yep.
Yeah. Classic horror movie framing, though, of her foot in the water.
I know.
Like, something's going to bite her foot.
They still want you to think something in the wilderness is watching. Or not still. This is, again, like, we get these kind of shots a lot. But they're really playing with our understanding of genre convention in this show, especially in season 1, to kind of like lead us to feel certain ways. And that's such a good one.
Yeah. No, totally. I was like convinced something was going to come out of the water and get her. She's writing in her journal. And she says, when I'm famous, it can go into the archives, right? Or the safe in your closet.
It's a very Shauna joke too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she gives Javi a piece of paper and a pen, which, this is the Adam Mountain Tattoo episode as well. So it's sort of connected to the Javi drawing
Isn't
thing.
that funny?
Yeah. It is, especially because there's so much been made later on about the connections between those drawings and his tattoo.
Understandably so. I really think that is the biggest thing that makes me not ready to put the Adam Martin stuff to bed, because they make so sure that you see his back tattoo, not just in this episode. Yeah. We get it more than once. And those drawings are so similar.
I'm going to put in the chat. So when I was prepping for this episode, I went on Reddit to find a picture of the tattoo, and I found a picture of somebody had compiled a picture of that tattoo next to all the drawings. And so I went into Photoshop and lightened it up so it was more legible because why not? And I'm going to throw that in the chat so we can have it to talk about when we're there. We're not quite there yet, but I'm going to give you that photo to look at.
But it's the next scene, too. I don't know if you said it's the next scene or if you said later. We get that scene, and then it cuts to Shauna getting ready, and in it she is, like, remembering her time with
You're so right.
With Adam.
Yeah. You're so right. I hadn't thought about that.
Like, even, oh my God, Jody. Okay, so listeners, we keep saying they're so similar, but there's one in particular, like, there's kind of a composite. So there's the bird wearing the dunce cap, that's whatever. I don't think there are any birds on his back tattoo.
A diamond.
But there's one drawing, it is behind the tree with the lady figure, whatever, that is very Illuminati. It's like a pyramid, it's got a circle behind it, and then it's got like a teardrop in the middle of the circle, in the middle of the triangle. And then below it are 3 more teardrops. And that is recreated almost basically exactly on his back.
It's extremely similar.
And below that is a mountainscape, and above it on his back tattoo is a mountainscape. I have been harping on how similar these are, not realizing how similar they are. They are so incredibly close.
The circle within a circle is also like a trope that repeats throughout all of Javi's drawings, most of Javi's drawings, and is on the back tattoo also.
This is not just...
It can't be.
They're so close, but it's like a red herring because they're not really that close. They're just like, people are into like nature, and then like that like juxtaposition of tattoos of being like soft kind of like nature and then like hard geometry. Do you know what I mean? Like you
like
do
the
see
drops
that,
coming from a triangle
but
thing.
it's so specific.
It really is.
There's even, if you zoom in real close on his back tattoo, there is a fat little bird and he's wearing a full-on top hat.
Shut up.
It's a full-on top hat. It's got a little feather in it. It's probably the bird's feather, but it could be from somewhere else. I don't know.
Listeners, Andrea is lying to you. But yes.
Would I lie to you?
Yes. But no, it's true. There's a lot of sort of repetition of that symbology from his. And so
why, Jody? Why?
Okay, so here are some thoughts, and I can't take credit for all of these.
You gonna throw some pins in the old corkboard?
Yeah. We're gonna throw some pins in the old corkboard. Get out the red string. So I can't take credit for these. A lot of them are from Reddit, but I really needed to, because I saw that photo that I just shared with you. I was like, I really need to see what other people thought at the time. This is actually not that old. This thread is what?
Jody, also, Javi is dead. Because in my, like, I think
But the drawings.
Right. But do they?
So here, let me give you some thoughts. So, okay. So there are people that think that this is a mistake, right? That this has to do with the original idea that the creators have confirmed that they entertained Adam and Javi being the same person. So some people think it's just a mistake. But one of the things that was said was like, what if the drawings made it out with someone, right? So Ben currently has the drawings in 96.
Right.
And so
and if Adam is a member of the cult as well, which people have suspected, and he ran into Ben there, and Ben was keeping the drawings curled up real tiny in his beard for safekeeping.
Yeah, exactly. So the drawings could have made it out. Is the explanation for if they are connected, and if Adam did get the tattoo because he's like a Yellowjackets obsessive or a super fan or involved in the cult somehow, that, you know, Javi doesn't have to be alive for him to have that.
Yeah, and I do think it's pretty likely that the drawings did make it back, because whether Ben does or not, because I don't think it's the last we've seen of Ben. I think the girls are going to find his hideout, and we know that Shauna brings all of her journals back, and also that Javi meant a lot to Shauna. So if she finds those pictures, she's keeping them.
She would have taken them, yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Exactly. So I do think that it's a pretty big connection to just let drop and not actually mean anything.
It just seems like the easy tie up for Adam at this point is that we find out, I don't like it. I don't think it's as fun as other options, but we find out that he was, which I think this part of it you're already on board for, that he was kind of like a Shauna obsessive early on.
Yeah.
I don't know how he would have found because I don't get the impression that Shauna, if she brings the drawings back, would have shared them with anyone. In my head, they would have gone, and which to me implies
that it wasn't her that had them, that it was like Ben or anyone else. Lottie, like I could see Lottie like kind of in a sick way using them as part of the lore of her cult.
Totally.
You know, because she doesn't seem to have any problem using the symbols on the trees that were around.
That's a really good point.
You know, so it could just be more of her like symbology that she's built into her little society of psychos.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. This episode really lends itself to the Shauna and Adam stuff. Like, I really get the feeling, and I go back and forth with him, but that he already knows her history and who she is at this point. Even if he didn't when they first met, I think by now he does. That's
where I landed. Also, just to point out when we're talking about these tattoos, that later on we find out in season 2 that the cops tell Jeff when they find the torso that the tattoos were graded off like a rind of pecorino. I just want to bring us back to that.
A nice look, Adele.
Yeah, so, you know, they were important enough, at least for identification purposes, that they were removed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I found what I was looking for. Some of these like notes on this question from other people on Reddit. Like some Jennifer Lorene says, my best guess is Adam is a Yellowjacket superfan and somehow saw these drawings. Maybe Adam knew Ben, and people's theory about Ben being alive in present day timeline and hiring people to get revenge on the girls is true. Like, there's all sorts of ways. Somebody mentioned Adam is Ben's nephew. I think Ben mentioned he has siblings. Maybe he told his family about the girls, sent Adam to get Shauna, wanted vengeance for the girls becoming rabid. So there's all sorts of ways that this could,
right.
The drawings and the tattoo could be tied together in the present.
I also really want Ben to make it out.
Me too.
He's just been through it, and he, more than anybody, didn't deserve
No more kill the gays tropes in 2024.
Exactly.
Yeah, let's get Ben out of there alive somehow. But yeah, this does seem to tie Adam maybe to the cult in some way, or to a surviving character,
right, at least. Yeah, and then we cut to Nat and Kevin at dinner.
Yeah, this is sad to me because he's so still a teenage boy with a crush.
Totally.
And she's just manipulating him, and she's doing it from a place of like extreme trauma and sadness, but it's still manipulation.
Yeah. To somebody she was very close with. Like,
yeah.
But we get a little Misty in this because they're clear. She's told him that it was Misty, obviously, and he says, like, I should have known, whatever. When you were commenting on how shapely my legs are.
Yes.
Misty.
We know how Misty feels about calves.
Jesus.
Yeah. It's a very weird thing to focus on.
Mm-hmm. Kevin Tan, of course, knows how to write a haiku.
Of course.
He knows that 575.
Yeah.
And then we see that Misty is at the same place with one of her, like, patients.
Yeah.
She orders a chocolate martini. It's such a Misty drink. Of course she does. Of course that's what Misty drinks.
Yeah. I love the patient she's brought with her and her disdain for Misty in general, but she's just like, whatever, I get out and I get a free meal. Like, exactly. Okay, I'll sit here and watch you be an idiot.
Fine.
We have a little flash to Ty at the party. We find out that Simone is the rising star of the complit department, which tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells them the dinner's a roasted pig. And this is where we start to see Ty's discomfort. She's obviously a vegetarian.
I will say, I'm sure there are great little... I'm sure there are amazing little farms upstate in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Deptford, New Jersey is famously pig farms still. It was built as, which is South Jersey. Like, if you really want to get, they 100% should have said an
From
amazing
Deptford.
Little farm down south. And then we all would have said, oh, it's Deptford. That's where all the pigs
We all
live.
would have said that. I think you would have said that. I don't know if everyone else would have instantly known about the pig farms of Deptford, New Jersey.
By the time I'm done, everyone will know.
Everyone will.
Of the pig farms of Deptford, New Jersey. Yeah, and we see, again, like, Misty eating the jerky so happily last episode.
Yeah.
And Ty being so understandably repulsed. The idea of a pig roast. It's Jackie.
Just stick an apple in her mouth. Yeah. No, it's horrible. This is where we get that. The next bit is Adam and Shauna doing their little misspent youth moment together.
So stupid.
The screwdriver's in a Tropicana bottle and outside the Artful Dodger pub.
Uh-huh. Trying to get that guy when he's like, you're not going to get carded. Like, oh.
He says, is this a sex thing?
She's like, we're still like figuring that out.
Yeah. She's so silly high school kid here.
I know.
This was like, it's an awkward and interesting, like, set of scenes, the two of them doing this whole, like, revisiting high school thing. Because now when I'm watching it, I'm like, is he in on this? Like,
right.
Does he, not in on it, but you know what I mean? Like, does he know what her high school years were? Actually, I think he does.
I think at this
point,
and
so
he's
does. Humoring all of this and seemingly really enjoying her company. Like, I'm not saying he's not into her. He is into her.
Yeah. But I think what is confusing I think what makes me go back and forth so much on it is that, like, it seems like even if Adam is hiding stuff from her, it's not because he has some other weird agenda. I think the weird agenda is that he's obsessed with Shauna. It's not that, like, or maybe it's like I made that bet before I knew you, before I really knew me kind of thing, where somebody has sent him in to do something, and in the process he has realized he actually is into her. But I don't get, I think that's a reach. I don't get that impression.
It doesn't fit with the way he has responded to her the entire time.
Right.
He's responded to her with, I think, too much familiarity in the beginning, which is what led me to feel like he already knew about her. But he's never seemed like a danger to her, other than our like sort of instinctive gut reaction to a random man showing up. Just but that's not showing up in his character or his choices.
Exactly.
Yeah. We get a quick flashback to the bar where Jessica Roberts is there.
Just everybody's
hanging out at the Bricks and Mortar. This place is apparently called. Misty's trying to let Nat know that Jessica's there, but Nat's ignoring her texts and calls. Yeah, this section is all in 2021, but it's jumping around from the 3 different scenes. So we've got Misty, Nat, and Jessica Roberts at the bar. We've got Ty at the party, and we've got Adam and Shauna.
Yeah, let's tie those 3 up in their own way, especially because like the one at the bar moves pretty quickly.
And it's cut up a lot.
They all kind of
chopped.
even though they're...
Yeah, it's chopped into a lot of pieces. So to finish up the bar scene, eventually, when Nat refuses to answer Misty's call, Misty goes up to Jessica Roberts. And Jessica seems like she's flirting with everyone she talks to. I love her so much.
Yes, totally.
She just has a vibe with literally everyone.
Misty gives a line here where she's like, I know you think I'm someone you don't need to be afraid of, but you're wrong.
Yep.
And Misty is always playing a role. Like, I never feel like we get a real Misty. This feels just the way that Christina Ricci delivers the line. It doesn't feel like there's anything hiding,
right?
Like in front of or behind it. Like, I think she means it.
I think so too. Well, we know she means it.
Yeah. I mean, I think she's not saying it to intimidate somebody who she doesn't have a plan for what to do with.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Yeah. And, not for nothing, but in the intro package that we now have, the leads into our show with the music and the no return and all of that, like one of those little scenes that flashes through is the syringe going into the chocolate.
Right. From
when she's holding her hostage. So yeah. And we know she ends up killing her with a needle putting some fentanyl into a cigarette. So
wouldn't you love to find out that didn't actually kill her? And
yes,
that like season 5 Jessica Roberts comes back.
It's not gonna happen though.
She like steps out from behind a tree and it's just there. I would love it. I would love it. I mean she must be, but we've never officially had that on screen confirmed.
I know.
I don't think.
I feel like the creators have said that she's dead.
Oh, she's definitely dead.
Yeah.
But I would just love for her to come back.
Yeah.
I think she's so great.
So just to finish up that bar scene, the next bit of it we see is Nat and Kevin, and Nat giving Kevin the mixtape. And this is where she kind of does a little manipulating.
I'm being nitpicky, but Kevin says, I was just looking for this. The mixtape you made for Nat and gave to her? What?
I know. Doesn't make sense.
But fine.
Yeah. He tries to kiss her, and she kind of ducks it and then brings up Travis.
He breaks my heart when he says, like, you had to know I was, like, totally in love with you.
Yeah. I know.
She plays him just like a fiddle, and he falls right into it. I mean, he knows when he says, like, I can make a few calls, you know that he knows he's being played, but he just cares about her so much.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart.
Because, I mean, I think we're meant to assume, I think they even say it earlier, that, they basically lost, like he said, the last time I saw you, I don't remember what he says there, but it was pre-plane crash.
Yeah, he says, like, you were getting out of my car and saying, I'll see you tomorrow. And that was the last.
Yeah.
Very sad.
And then when she gets back to the hotel, I think we're meant to feel like the thing where she's like washing her face and her mouth after she's kissed him is, I read it originally as like disgust, but I
Mhm.
think that it's actually more guilt
Mhm.
and like disgust with herself
Yeah, I think
for
so.
manipulating
That's
him.
definitely how I read that this time around, at least.
Yeah.
Which, that's the thing is like Nat. We've talked so much about how traumatized she is and how she's kind of on autopilot with doing this dark thing, but like Nat from the beginning has always been the character, I think, with the strongest moral compass and the one who is like
Yeah.
the least. She just doesn't. She even when she is hurting somebody like Kevin, there's no. She's not.
She's not enjoying it.
Of course not. And it's not
Yeah.
even just that she's not enjoying it. It's like it's hurting her too. In a way where like Misty does. Or in a way where like Shauna can put it aside. Like Shauna can be hurtful and compartmentalize it and
Yeah.
and like repress it hurting her, at least on the surface, right?
Yeah.
And Nat does not have that ability. She's struggling doing this thing that she feels like she has to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we go back to Ty at the party to kind of follow that thread, she's drinking too much and hasn't eaten because she's not going to eat that pig.
Mm-hmm. Everyone is trying so hard to impress her in this scene. I love Ty, and I know she's running for state senator, which is whatever, but I just have to reiterate, she is just a land use lawyer. And everybody is, and I think she is.
But she's famous.
She is.
Like, she's.
Right. But it's weird that that's the, like, I don't know.
I know.
And I know that she's, like, smart and charismatic and beautiful and capable and powerful, and we know all of that, and they obviously know all of that. But she is, like, the belle of this ball. It is really interesting.
But if you think about, like, say you still lived, like, in the town you grew up in, basically, and there was a plane crash and the survivors came back 19 months later, and then one of those went into politics, like there would naturally be just this like intense fascination with that person.
Yeah.
We have a sick celebrity culture.
Yeah, that's very true. And especially in Jersey with like the way politics run this state in a way that is kind of like a soap opera all the time. Anyway.
Yes.
So it is.
See Bobby Gold
right.
bars.
But and I know I'm really harping on this, and it's something I need to let go of, and that we have talked about, and it is just like this has to happen because this is what Ty's character is doing, but it is insane that she would be running for office. It is crazy that she would be running for office, but fine. Yeah. I can't.
It's like a very self-destructive impulse.
Yeah.
Like, because there's no way this is going to do anything but bring up all the stuff she's trying not to talk about.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, she's definitely the belle of the ball here. Mm-hmm. She grabs a little hors d'oeuvre, thinking that it's vegetarian, tastes it, realizes it's meat, and spits it out. But we do have a moment where a look crosses her face.
I thought so too.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. There's a pause when she's like sitting with that flavor for a second. 100%. And then she just, hallucinates a wolf, like, like we all do.
How you hallucinate a wolf.
Yeah. And follows it. And then we get the Diane. What's her name? Diane.
Bums the smoke.
Mm-hmm.
And is offering Ty exactly what Ty wants. The endorsement. And Ty knows that then the election's in the bag. But it becomes clear very quickly that why Diane is doing this is because she wants to know what really happened out there.
Yeah. They use that phrasing every single time. What really happened out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
She says, I'm like a well you whisper your secrets into.
God. Yeah. Also, this set dressing for this scene is really effective. They're in a very dark room. They're surrounded by plants. It's like a little like greenhouse sort of indoor jungle situation. Ty's like lit from below with this like creepy lighting. It has a lot of that like weird feeling of they're in like a fancy suburban home, but it feels dangerous somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of the lighting and the setting.
And it is the darkest thing in this entire episode is them tucked up into this window together, having this little...
sharing a Cliff Bar.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, after Ty gives the official story, this kind of falls apart, and Ty tells her to fuck off.
Yes, ma'am. I'll perfectly calibrate my tone as I tell you to go
Yeah.
fuck yourself.
There you go. That's the line.
She's so good. I kept watching
Yeah.
for Dark Ty, other Ty to switch on. I kept watching
Yeah.
for other Ty to switch on. It never really happens. This is just Ty.
This is just her.
Which
Yeah.
I love.
Yeah. I know. It's so interesting because we've talked all this time about like one Ty and the other Ty and like who's real Ty. And it's like, it's not that simple.
No, it's
not that simple.
No, it's and I think what's interesting then is when real Ty feels like, whether consciously or not, like here she clearly feels fine telling this woman to go fuck herself, and rightly so, right? But when something comes up that she feels she has to really kind of bury herself in and let other Ty out to handle it, makes it all the more, because it's not just like, oh, Ty is capable and in control and doesn't really want to do anything that's
right. That's
outside
not the case.
of bounds, and so everything gets funneled through other Ty. No.
Yeah. No, it's more complicated than that for sure. In my notes in this scene, it says Ty listens to idiots talking about money.
These people are clowns, all of them. They're all clowns.
I also found it interesting that at this time when the show was out, and this is only episode 4, and people were like, where's the cannibalism? Where is it? You promised us cannibalism. And that's exactly what this, like, everyone in their lives is doing. And the audience at the time, for all of season 1 and the beginning of season 2, were like, give us the eating people part.
You promised. Where is it?
Yeah, where is it? So I thought that was clever. We are the rich idiots at the party, asking about the cannibalism.
Totally, you're so right.
So we should go back now to Shauna and Adam, also because Shauna is how the episode ends. So they're having their little date, their little teen date still.
I think you called it awkward, these scenes. They really are. Even Shauna, like,
she's like play acting.
And Melanie Lynskey is so good, because at first I was like, is Melanie Lynskey doing a bad job here? Like, she never does a bad job, but it's that she's trying so hard to be like fun and youthful and light, but like there's just so much going on in this, and we're supposed to watch it, I think, as if, oh, look at Shauna getting to kind of let go a little bit, and it, you know, she's feeling really free and light, but I think it's more complicated than that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I don't think she's feeling free and light at all. She's trying to, but it's not working, as is evidenced by the fact that towards the end of this, she sees Jackie on the bridge. But before that, they have their little, like,
man, all of
romp.
The women are hallucinating, and they don't do this every episode.
Yeah.
But in this episode, we get Ty seeing the deer head and the wolf. We get Nat seeing young Nat. We get Shauna seeing young Jackie. Like, it's really, the past is really starting to pop up for them now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like fully taking over their lives in the present. But so they drink their shitty alcohol in the car. They go play mini golf. And in a very sort of suburban teen way, the goal is not to actually win the game, but to hit the ball into someone else's house if you can.
So funny.
Very, very classic teen behavior. They jump off the bridge together. This is where we see Jackie saying somebody's going to get hurt, which is Adam. And then they get back to the car. They make out. Also, something that I noticed this time, maybe I noticed it last time, but I don't quite remember, is so they're back at Adam's car, right? And they're making out. And there's this like acknowledgement between them. And then they go in and like have sex. It's so the two of her and Jeff in Jeff's car in high school.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost the same car. Like, it's not the same car, but it's close to the same car.
Right.
It's like a vintage, I think we've discussed this before. I have an obsession with the cars in this show. It's a vintage Bronco. And so they're like, she's recreating in a weird way that moment with Jeff.
Totally.
Right before they left, when she still had her innocence and her, well, innocence, whatever, when she still had her pre-cannibalistic war self.
You are so correct. That is.
Yeah, it's like I said, this is like the 5th time I've watched this show, but it finally occurred to me that like it's so similar to that moment where she and Jeff are having sex in the car. And so if I could just get a little red string here.
Please.
If we are thinking of, as I am now, Shauna's having sex with Adam in his Bronco as a parallel to her having sex with Jeff in his whatever that car was. In my brain, it's a Range Rover, but that's not what it is. Shauna gets pregnant in that scene with Jeff.
Do we?
Are we gonna? I kind of don't want to. I think that's too easy or too like trope, whatever.
But this show,
you know what I mean.
This show, and I don't mean this as an insult. It is I'm not putting a value judgment on this. The show is uneven.
Yes.
And sometimes it is so clever and careful about what it's doing, and sometimes it's hitting you over the head with a hammer. Like it just feels to me like Bart and Ashley and their writers do what they think will be the most like fun, even if it's a mean kind of fun or interesting to them a lot of the times. And there is something there would be something it would be very soap opera-y, but also very like compelling.
Yes.
If Shauna gets pregnant by this dead man and has specifically a son and like has a baby off the island now in her 40s, that was, do you know what I mean? As like a kind of, as they're revisiting
I
what
know exactly
happened
what you mean.
Out in the woods and sort of like the way those patterns repeat and blah, 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 blah. Like that would be. And also Jeff having to sort of blame himself. Like, well, the first baby was because I had an affair with her I was having an affair with her while I was dating her best friend who then died. Like, there's something about that I think is compelling.
100%.
Do you in your notes do you remember, I don't remember if we actually talked about it on the podcast. Somebody made a calendar of the events of 2021, how much time passed and when the different things were happening. I'm just wondering how parallel these 3 events are.
Right.
I know I'm trying to, that might be a fun thing when we get to the end of this season to go back through and talk about.
I think in this episode, it's pretty parallel because Shauna gets home from her date. Oh, maybe not. Interesting. I'm wondering this now because, okay, so Shauna gets home, her phone rings, it's Misty. Shauna says, I told you never to call me. And Misty, with a smile on her face, tells her that Travis is dead and that no one has kind of clued her in. And then there's a shot of a printout of an article about his suicide. Shauna goes back inside and Jeff asks, how was book club?
Right.
And then the episode ends.
There's no book club?
There's no book club. But so like, as she gets home from this, she's finding out about Travis. So I think your question is interesting because it's like, is this all happening at the same time? Did Misty call right when she got home from seeing Jessica Roberts? Or is it from before? Like, and I don't know if it matters, but it's interesting to think about. Yeah.
We'll have to retrace all of this.
Yeah. The last thing this is so unrelated, but it was so funny to me. I have to mention this. So like I said, I went on Reddit before we started recording just to kind of catch myself up on like what people are currently talking about. And 3 days ago, someone posted on the Yellowjackets subreddit with a photo of Callie's bedroom and her little pink bed, her very pink bedroom. There is a pig pillow on her bed. Now stay with me. There's a pig pillow on her bed next to a donut pillow. And somebody named Mordsith posted, that pig pillow in Callie's room is the exact same pillow we made in home ec class in 1996 in 8th grade. I kept a part of the nose unsewed so I could hide things in it. That's also very 1990s. Put your weed in there.
Yep.
But apparently it was a kit sold specifically for middle and high school home ec classes in the 90s. And so there was like several patterns available. Students chose one and the home ec teacher would teach them how to sew it. I didn't have home ec in high school. So I don't know if I would have had this. I'm going to send you a link to this post. And And then someone else wrote, I made a frozen banana, LOL, cartoon banana, but inside the peel, he was blue with a freezing expression. Someone else said, I suddenly have memories back to 8th grade making the same pillow. So this is like the set dressers on this show have so much fun.
That's so funny.
Also, it's a pig.
Because that means probably Shauna made it.
Exactly.
And gave it to...
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a pig.
That. Yep. Huh.
Maybe they're gonna eat Callie.
Good eye, Mord Sith
187. Yeah, no, that was a little delightful Easter egg for me to find today.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Okay, so we are going back to 1996. Yeah, we get a little exposition here from Ben about how there's so much ammo because he was preparing for the apocalypse.
Yep.
So we don't have to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we get Nat hitting 5 cans in a row and them realizing she needs to be on the hunting trip.
Mm-hmm. We also get, she makes fun of Travis. She calls him Flex. He spins the gun on her.
Yeah. Yeah. I was not a fan of Travis for most of this season.
No.
And I still kind of, I mean, even though we're supposed to have more sympathy for him in the present, I'm like,
it's really hard.
It is. In my notes, Nat hits 5 in a row, period. Misty is wearing a shirt with cats on it, period.
That's everything you need.
Yeah, I need that sweatshirt.
Mm-hmm.
We get a quick scene of them hunting for mushrooms in the woods, which we don't need to belabor, but obviously is a hint for the upcoming Doomcoming episode.
Mm-hmm.
Lottie sees a symbol on the tree.
Mm-hmm.
They find the plane, the little plane in the woods.
That little plane.
Mm-hmm.
Very lost.
Very lost, yes. And we get Jackie pushing Van out of the way, sort of in to make up for leaving her to burn to death on the plane.
Funny. Makes us even.
Yeah. And this is where Lottie, recently off of her medication, says it didn't want them to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Or didn't want him to leave about the plane.
Very scary.
Yeah.
Lottie. We realize that Travis has led Nat back to the plane. Her tracking skills are not developed yet. Season 2, she would have known immediately what was happening.
Yeah.
He's looking for his dad's ring to bring back to Javi.
Yeah, and this is the first time we get a little bit of a humanizing of him. He talks about where the whole Flex nickname came from, and he's trying to get the ring for Javi. Like, I don't know.
Flex thing. I just want to stay on that for a little bit. It is such a thing of like.
Is it a Marilyn Manson reference?
It's 100%. It's a Marilyn Manson reference.
I thought so.
Number one. That's the reason the kids even knew to make that joke.
Exactly.
Right? Like it turns out Travis had a spinal fusion or something when he was a kid.
Or something.
Yeah. He said it sucked. So this is like medical trauma that he's being made fun of for, which is why.
Right.
But it's such a stupid. It's like when you were a kid, they could pick anything to make fun of you for, and it would be devastating.
Anything.
When I was in elementary school, they called me Dr. Quinn because my last name is Quinn, and Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman. And Jody, I hated it.
I know, that was like a perfectly fine show.
It was a perfectly fine show, and also, what's the insult there?
Yeah, you're a doctor, Andrea.
Yeah, you're a doctor on the frontier.
Yeah.
You're a feminist icon, so ahead of your time. I hated it.
It literally could have been anything. It
does not matter.
It feels so spot on accurate to the time and the type of thing that kids would like fixate on, especially if it was something sexual or like
exactly,
quote unquote weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and just that it's also a Marilyn Manson thing. It's just perfect.
Yeah.
They just nailed exactly. And he's still so affected by being called Flex at this point.
Yeah.
Like he pulls a gun on her.
I know. It's bonkers. Then they just have the gross scene where he digs, finds his hand, can't handle it. She gets the ring off.
Mm-hmm. They bond.
Yeah. They smoke together in the plane and talk about bad dads.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this is where we see what we get. It's another one of those really fast back and forth kind of things. We see them hunting and we see what actually happened with Nat's dad.
Right. So she pulls the gun to shoot the deer that they've seen in the woods, and we get the flashback to her holding the gun facing her dad and then pulling the trigger, and he's making fun of her basically because the safety's off. And he turns it on.
Right.
Or he turns the safety off. It was on. Flip it. You know what I mean? Yeah, and so we see what actually happens with her dad, which is he calls her useless. She yells back at him. He trips and shoots himself with the gun. And then her mom comes out and like cries over the body, even though he had just been like beating her up a minute ago.
Right. Yeah. They're in a difficult relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we know that in the present day, her mom still blames her horrifyingly for her husband's death, which is terrible.
She's like romanticizing the time before he died as like the better times.
Yeah,
it's rough. It also kind of emphasizes our feeling that Nat is fully alone in the world. Like her mother has no interest in being a mother to her.
Truly so heartbreaking.
Yeah,
I really hate all of this. It's really tough.
Yeah,
they get the deer, and then the last scene in 1996 is all of them shot. Ben, again, like you said, this episode really being his last grasp. He's the one who says, like, we need to lead the deer and blah, blah, blah. And Shauna's like, I'll give it a whirl.
I think she says,
I'll give it a shot or something. But she's basically like, well, let's see how this goes. And we know, like, she becomes our expert butcher.
Yeah. Yeah.
They eat the deer.
She's finding her talents out in the woods.
Exactly. They eat the deer. Travis gives Javi their dad's ring, and it is healing. It does seem to make a difference there, which is nice.
I also think that the way that they show them eating the deer meat is one of the things that I think made people wonder if they were actually going to get to cannibalism or if it was a red herring, because they're like so gross about how they eat the deer that I think some people were like, maybe it isn't actually
like, maybe these girls are just gross.
Yeah. They have no manners.
Yeah.
But it's obviously like they're starving, and it's a pre-echo is not a thing. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it's a
premonition of.
No, I like pre-echo.
That's not a thing, though. What's the word I'm looking for?
It's like a.
Help me out, English teacher.
Yeah, it's not foreshadowing. I mean, I guess
it is foreshadowing. But that's probably like what I was thinking of.
Yeah, but it's
foreshadowing of the way that they devoured.
Okay, not to English major, but it is really funny that Shadow is kind of an echo. And pre is before. Like, do you know what? Like a shadow is just kind of a physical echo.
That's
like
deep.
You cast a shadow, you cast it like it. You were so deep. Right. You were so right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is sort of foreshadowing the scene in season 2 with Jackie as the roast.
Totally. And then
we get Misty. Yeah.
You said it's misery. It's so misery.
It's so misery. Yeah, she trips him. You see the look on his face. He realizes even more so what he's actually dealing with. It's just, yeah. The fact that he's still alive, actually, where we are right now in the show is amazing to me. I'm so grateful.
Yes.
Because I love him as a foil for the teens, but like the fact that she hasn't like pushed him off a cliff yet is wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
She's a demon.
Yes.
So that's 1996.
Yes, that is 1996.
Yeah, what do we think about this one overall?
It's funny. I feel like we've romanticized season 1 as every episode was a banger.
I think so too.
Because season 2 was so uneven in ways. And I don't think this one was a banger. It was important backstory, but kind of felt a little tonally disjointed.
I think so too.
Shifting from Shauna and Adam and their playful date to the trauma of Nat and her family, and it just was a little. Also, it did drag a little bit in the middle for me.
Yeah, it's hard for me to admit that because you and I have been so against everybody saying that about season 2, but I'm kind of like, this stuff has all been there for me, and I wonder if this is true for a lot of people who watched Yellowjackets. Like watching all of it in 3 days or 2 days, like I did. it's so much harder to see all of that stuff. And with season 2, watching week to week, we had time to sit with each one and think about how we felt about it. And so going back and looking at season 1 now and having to put a week between each episode for me has been really useful in kind of clearing out or like taking off maybe. And it's not that I'm still obsessed with this show, obviously. But I think I can see it a little more. Because we even said in our first episode, like, we're not going to be critical of this show. Like, we know that there are things to be critical about, and this is not what the series is going to be. And I think now coming back and looking at season 1 after all of that, it feels okay to be a little more objective.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, when I first watched Yellowjackets, I think I got on the train super early. It had only been 1 or 2 episodes, I think, that were out when I started watching. So I did watch it week to week in season 1. But I think that when I recommended it to you and you did your like binge rewatch and I kind of binge rewatched it with you, I got that experience of like everything all at once and like, you know, turn on the next episode, like just keep the story going. So I do think that the time in between, it does change the way that you feel about an episode that could be called quote unquote filler, even though it's obviously not. Still good. It's still better than a lot of this shit out there, but
also it
just felt a little slow.
It also is funny too, the show gets so crazy. I know it starts out crazy, but like think about where we end up at the end of season 2 compared to where we are now.
I know. It seems so, like, normal and innocent. Like, there's some girls trapped in the woods and they're hungry. And in 2021, they're having some trauma flashbacks because of it. Like, yeah, that seems normal.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to get a lot weirder. That was episode 4. Next week, we are on to 5, Blood Hive.
The girls ride the Crimson Wave and plan a dark arts slumber party. And then there is another one, though. Yeah, it's very good. What a fun thing to write. But I did find another one on IMDb that is, the grammar is off on it. But I do want to say it says, out in the wilderness, we'll say the girls plan a dark arts slumber party. Natalie and Misty tame a stallion? I don't know what that's referring to. On Halloween night, Shauna parties like it's 1996. It's a big one.
Yeah, there's some good stuff in next week's episode.
I still want to know
what that means.
It doesn't matter, but so they're doing all of the Travis investigating stuff. That's when they hack like Kevin's
the hacker.
Email.
Does the hacker have a name that involves the word stallion?
Oh, I'll probably. Is he like? Oh, he was like Italian stallion. That would be very Jersey.
I don't think that's it because I would remember that. But
I'll bet you're right. It has something to do with the hacker. Okay, I feel better now. Anyway, so that'll be next week. If you have thoughts, ideas, questions, comments, let us know. WatchersPodNJ@gmail.com or at WatchersPodNJ on Instagram.
Yeah. I also want to kind of put out another request to any of our listeners that found us from Reddit. If you are enjoying this season 1 recap through the lens of the whole series so far, maybe just post about it because we can't.
Right, and we're not allowed. Word of mouth is really the best way still. Even in today's big Conan O'Brien smartless world, is still the best way to get podcasts in front of people. Right.
And so, you know, I'm not going to go on there and be like, hey, our podcast is back covering season 1 because that'll get taken down. But if you're enjoying it, you know, a lot of our listeners came to us from Reddit in the first place. We are Reddit. Like, we're on there all the time, too. So
that's why we're allowed to make fun of Reddit.
Because we are the red string people.
That's right.
But yeah, so anyway, just a quick request. If you're enjoying this sort of like re-dive into season 1, maybe let other people know. That's all. So you can find, like Andrea said, you can find us on Instagram at WatchersPodNJ. You can find me on Instagram at Jody_Mim. That is JODIE_MIM. And Andrea.
And I'm at AQ Andrea Q.
That'll do it for us for this week. And we will see you. I'm waiting for you to say it.
In the woods.
We'll see you in the woods.
See you in the woods.